Hey, I want to talk about God's grace for a minute. I've been thinking about that Bible verse. I think it's 2 Corinthians 12:9, where he says, "My grace is sufficient for you," right? "My power is made perfect in weakness." I have just been thinking about God's grace so much. Um, and that verse has been just going through my mind. I think I used to think of that verse as more like, was it Paul? Wanted whatever, to not be tortured by whatever. And God was just saying, like, my grace is sufficient for you. And he still had to deal with that, whatever it was that he didn't want to have to deal with. And at first, I kind of thought of it like, oh, well, God's just not giving him what he wants or whatever, But there is so much power in thinking about that. Like, my grace is sufficient for you. Like, that's enough. Like, that's all you need, right? And it's actually very, like, calming. So if you're going to be, like, going into a stressful situation or, dealing with something hard, to just remember, like, God's grace. Like, God's grace has gone before us, right? God's grace goes with us. It will help us through it. Like, it's very peaceful, like, trusting, right? If you can just have that trust in God, when you're going to do whatever it is that's hard, and just that faith, like, knowing God's grace is sufficient, right? God's grace has literally surrounded this situation, gone first, gone with me, right? God's grace is just present, and this piece about God's grace going before, right? God's grace going first, and then God being with us through it and giving his grace through it. And it's just so empowering to keep that in mind moving through difficult situations. Like, my grace, God's saying, my grace is sufficient for you. There's a lot of power in that sentence right there. Right? My power is made perfect in weakness. I just love that. I love that verse. So, anyway, I've been thinking a lot about that lately. Like, it's so calming to know, like, you literally have enough. You have what you need for whatever it is because of God's grace, right? Going before you and going with you through whatever it is. And if you can just trust in that and move through the situation with that knowledge, just remembering my grace is sufficient for you, it's so calming, right? To stay in that mindset while you're doing whatever. Puts you in, like, a very, like, trusting, calm place. I love it. But anyway, what I was gonna say. Sorry about my hair. I chopped it off during Lent. I actually had my daughter chop it off. Normally I pay to go in and get, like, the $100 haircuts, and then this time I was just, like, telling my kid to chop my hair off for me. So I have this, like, hair situation going on because I didn't, go into a professional and have them fix it for me. But I mean, I feel like she did good enough where maybe we could let it ride, But anyway, that is all I wanted to say about God's grace. I just have been really loving that verse lately. So anyway, have an awesome day. Bye.